Hello and good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our Veritas webinar today where we'll be focusing on Backup Exec. So we're joined here by Alex Macindoe from Veritas, who will be presenting the webinar with you.
Can you see that okay, Amy?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect, cool, perfect. Thanks very much. So thanks Amy, and thanks for Bytes for inviting me on this presentation. Just to kind of quickly introduce myself, my name is Alex Macindoe. I'm the Backup Exec Sales Engineer, or one of the Backup Exec Sales Engineers for Veritas in the UK. And I think I've got about 40 minutes to talk to you about the latest version of Backup Exec, which is Backup Exec 16. And more importantly, what's been out this year, what's come out in these feature packs 1 and 2. So I think Amy said that you can ask questions in the chat window there, and we'll try and answer those at the end. So on we go. So what is Backup Exec, and what has it been doing over the last few years? We've been backing up physical servers for I think just over 30 years now. So we've been backing up the traditional application servers, Microsoft, Linux, for a very, very long time. And as people have transitioned over to the virtualization world, so the Hyper-V, the VMware, we've also been backing up those workloads as well. It doesn't matter if you've got VMware, if you've got Hyper-V, if you're running any of those applications on any of those virtual hypervisors, we can protect those workloads. And now, as people move towards the cloud, we've added in extra functionality to be able to work with the cloud. So if you place your workloads into the cloud, we can back those up. If you want to utilize the cloud as a storage repository, we can also do that as well. And we can do this from the one console, from one backup server, from one backup product. So this is a kind of a unified approach to be able to back up any of your workloads wherever it may be. Doesn't matter if you're in a hybrid model or if you're going to go full cloud or anything else like that, we can actually protect you from the one product. There's no need to actually have any point products anymore between physical servers, virtual servers, or cloud. We can do all from the one package. As always, this is the bread and butter of Backup Exec for a long, long time. It's very, very simple to use. If anyone's ever used the console from back in the day, it's still very, very similar. We've changed a few things just recently to give it some Veritas branding, but it's very, very easy to use. Just with a few mouse clicks, I can be able to protect my workloads wherever they are. We're always reducing the licensing, trying to make it easier for our customers, and you'll probably see in the next couple of months we're actually reducing these even more to help with those renewals and help with those new purchases. And we're going to go on to reducing storage resources now, because obviously that's one of the biggest costs of a backup product, is where you back up to. And what we've got is we've got some flexible storage options. We've still got the massive hardware compatibility list to backing up to local storage. We can back up to most your backups off-site and offline. We've seen a big resurgence of backing up to tape over the last 6 to 12 months, so it's still very, very important. But what we've brought out brand new in Backup Exec 16 is the ability to use the cloud as a storage destination. We can utilize the public clouds, so we're talking about Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Google, Quantum. We can use those with our cloud connector, which is actually a free cloud connector. We don't actually charge for this cloud connector, and we can use those clouds as a storage destination. The good news with us is we can go directly to the cloud. We don't need any gateways, any proxy servers. We don't need to put any servers in the cloud. Because of our relationship with those vendors, we've developed a cloud connector that enables you to use that as a storage destination. A lot of people are still going to local disk first, and then they're going to cloud afterwards to keep a secondary copy. Just like tape, it's a great way of battling ransomware. So keeping your data in the cloud is offline, it's off-site, and ransomware, it's protected against ransomware. If you didn't want to go down the public cloud route, we can go to a private cloud. So if you wanted to set up your own S3 cloud on a different different sites, you can do that as long as you use the S3 protocol, and that's not a problem. You can also go to some of the S3 providers. So there's a couple of the logos there, and I'll show you even more logos during the presentation around who you can go to actually rent some S3 storage from. But generally, if they use the S3 API, then we will support it. So what else is new in Backup Exec 16? I'm not going to go through everything because I'll be here all day, but I'm going to concentrate on a few things. But Backup Exec 16 came out on the day Windows 2016 came out. So we supported Windows 2016 from the day it came out. Exactly the same with Hyper-V 2016 and the latest releases from VMware. So you should be confident to know that as soon as the new releases for Windows and for Hyper-V and for VMware come out, we should be able to support that from the outset. Enhanced platform support there on the right hand side. We can support the latest databases, we can support the latest Linux agents, specifically obviously all the Microsoft agents. We can generally support those from the day one as well. And some of the ones on the bottom there, I'm actually going to go through in a little bit more detail. And the first one is what came out in Feature Pack 1. And Feature Pack 1 came out in February this year, and we brought out 3 new features: Recover Ready, Instant Recovery, and we did some things around the Backup Exec Cloud. Now I'm going to go through all of these individually. The first thing, Instant Recovery, great new feature in Backup Exec. If you're backing up VMware or Hyper-V, what we can do is we can actually spin up or power on a virtual machine from a backup. So there's no longer the need to actually do a restore. So there's no longer having to wait for that huge restore time to be able to get that virtual machine back up and running. In the Backup Exec console, you can go on, press Instant Recovery on the virtual machine. It spins up the virtual machine from the backup storage. And then you get a choice of what you want to do with that virtual machine. You can keep it in a sandboxed environment, and you can do a file and folder restore. You can maybe test a patch, you can test a service pack, maybe test an upgrade. Or you can actually open up the sandbox and give it a network and actually put it back into production. It is still being run from the backup storage, so it may be a little bit slower. But what you can do is you can then use the migration or vMotion. So you can use live migration or vMotion depending on which flavor of hypervisor you're running, and you can move that virtual machine while it's running, while it's serving your users, while it's giving out the service that it's using, and move it into production storage. Now this can all be done in the background and doesn't affect the users. So instead of having to wait to do a restore, we can now bring up a virtual machine. I think I did this last week and it took 23 seconds. So who would like an SLA of 23 seconds to bring a server back up and running? I know definitely I would if I was running a kind of a service. This feature is included in our VMware or Hyper-V agent. So if you've already got the hypervisor agent, if you're already licensed to back up those servers, then this feature is included with that agent. There's a few enhancements here from Instant Recovery. So any changes to the virtual machine that happens actually get saved on the hypervisor and on the backup server. If either of those two are restarted for whatever reason, the Instant Recovery virtual machine will still be able to function after that restart. The next new feature is Recover Ready. Now this is linked to the Instant Recovery feature that I've just mentioned. I speak to a lot of customers, and they still like the peace of mind of doing a verify on their backup jobs. And this is kind of like a verify for virtual machine backups, but with a few enhancements. On the right hand side, there's a little button there that says validate the virtual machine for recovery. And this is part of the job. So when you create your job, you select this icon. And then after the job is ran, what it does is it boots up the virtual machine. So it runs an instant recovery. It keeps it sandboxed, so it's not going to interfere with any of the production virtual machines. It runs a validation test, which is like a ping test or a heartbeat test. It makes sure that the virtual machine is running and it's ready to go. And then what it does is it powers it down and removes the recovered virtual machine, and it sends the backup administrator a report, which is that bottom right hand window there. It says I've powered it on, I've recovered it, it's all successful, and it gives you the peace of mind that if the worst did happen, you're ready to recover. It's going to work. And that's recover ready. Again, this is a feature that is part of the license for backup virtual machines. So if you're already licensed for that, you're already able to use this feature. It's not a chargeable extra. And then what are we doing around the cloud? So in February, we brought the access to infrequent access storage on Amazon. So in the Amazon S3 world, there's 3 or 4 different types of storage that you can buy in the S3 buckets. You've got the most expensive one, you've got the middle one, which is infrequent access, and then you've also got Glacier. Glacier is generally used for archiving. Infrequent access is the middle bucket, which is actually really cheap. I think I've got a little example of it. Here we go. And that's probably the middle column is where you'd use your backups. And then on the left-hand side, you've got the S3 bucket, which is generally used for primary storage. But as you can see, the infrequent access is a lot cheaper. And this is what we use for our cloud connector. And you can see it's a lot cheaper. I think I've got another example of 100 terabytes. Over a year, you know, there's a huge saving there. There's nearly $20,000 worth of savings by using the infrequent access storage. So it's quite key. If you're looking at cloud backups, just make sure you are using the cheapest storage from whether it be AWS or whether it be Azure blob storage. There's loads and loads of support for S3 cloud providers, and we've got even more coming in the next feature pack, which I'll go through in a few slides down. But this one, you know, you can use Red Hat and Cloudian, but generally, if you are using the S3 API, we can back up to it. If anyone's a Microsoft customer, you can go into the marketplace. You can just search for Veritas, and we're in the marketplace. You can spin up a virtual machine with Backup Exec already preloaded in your cloud. It takes about, I think I did it, take about 12-13 minutes, and now you've got Backup Exec in the cloud. As soon as you've got Backup Exec in the cloud, you can do pretty much exactly what you can do with Backup Exec on premise. You can back up your cloud workloads. So if you've got any servers in the cloud, you can put agents on those just how you would do on-prem, and you can back them up to cloud storage, or you could even send them back to on-prem as well. You can link your cloud Backup Exec virtual machine to your on-prem Backup Exec, and you can do replication or synchronization. So if you wanted to do that, it's just 2 sites. You can use Backup Exec in the cloud for 60 days free of charge. If you did want to extend it over that 60 days, contact Bytes, buy a license. They will send you a license key, and you can put it straight into the Backup Exec server in Azure and carry on working. You don't need to do any reinstalls. You don't need to save anything. As soon as you get that license off Bytes, you can then put it into the cloud. That was feature pack 1 that came out in February, and we brought out 3 new features in feature pack 2, which is quite recent. We only brought these out in September. So if you haven't updated your Backup Exec server in the last 3 months, really advise you to do that. We've got some really good cloud features that came out, which are these 3 here. I'll go into these 3 a little bit more detail. And the big one, which is if anyone's doing cloud backup, they really need this feature, is the ability to run deduplication to the cloud. So what this does is this enables us to only send and store the individual blocks of data that have changed. Because in the backup world, if we take this PowerPoint presentation and this of an example, in Veritas, I get sent hundreds of PowerPoint presentations every week. It really fills up my laptop. And from a backup perspective, as soon as I get one of those files, it backs it up. But what do? I change the first screen on all of my presentations and I put my name on it. I don't want anyone else's name on it. And from a backup point of view, that then creates a whole new file. And some of these PowerPoint presentations are getting to be 10, 20 megabytes. And if I am only changing the first page, that's another 10 or 20 megabyte file. When we introduce deduplication, that enables us to split the file up in different blocks and only back up the first page. If you think about it, all the other pages are exactly the same. So with deduplication, we can back up the first page and we can forget about the rest of the presentation. And what that enables us to do is it enables us to only store the first page and transfer the first page. So the speed has increased tremendously, and we've saved a hell of a lot of storage. This is really, really key when backing up to the cloud, because we're now backing up over the internet. And I don't think many people here have probably got a gigabit line to the internet or anything decent like that. We're generally only talking about 100 meg links or 10 or 15 meg links. So we want to try and send as little amount of data down that wire as possible. And at the other end, you're being charged per gigabyte for that storage. So we want to try and store as little as possible. So with deduplication, we can send as minimum amount of data down the wire as possible, and we can also store as minimum amount of time. And the good thing is we support all the cloud providers with deduplication, whether you go with Amazon or Google, Microsoft, or any S3 provider. We can run this deduplication engine on any of those. You do need to buy the deduplication license, but if you're deduplicating to the cloud, I think that will make its money back within probably weeks rather than even months, because of the cost savings. Another new feature came out of feature pack 2 was the Cloud Connect Optimiser. Now, what this does is it enables you to if you think about your internet pipe as a motorway, what this enables you to do is it enables you to send as many cars down that motorway as possible. And what this does is it plays around with the right connections. Now, instead of having to guess how many right connections you are, because how long's a piece of string, Backup Exec will run a job for you, and it will recommend how many cars it should throw down the motorway. So if you've only got a dual carriageway and only 2 lanes, it will only try and send that amount of cars down that 2-lane motorway. If you've got an 8-lane motorway and you're really, really lucky, you can throw more right connections down there, and you can get a lot more throughput. And what this does is it just enables your job to run as fast as possible, but then also as reliable as possible. Again, if you go back to the motorway analogy, if you try and throw too many cars down a dual carriageway, what happens? It starts to slow down, starts to stop. It's exactly the same with the backup through the internet. If you're throwing too many files and too many blocks down a very small pipe, it will slow down, stop, maybe even fail. So with Backup Exec, with the Cloud Connect Optimiser, we can optimize those cloud backups and make sure everyone's running at full speed. And then the last one, I'm just going to extend this all the way, is even more S3 providers, Survivability List. So we've got NetApp, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica. You can go to a lot of providers and buy some S3 storage, or even put up a server in their data center and install the S3 plugin, and now you've got a DR site. And as long as you're S3 API, you are covered. And how do we do the licensing? A lot of people ask about licensing, and I've said earlier on in the presentation that it's simplified licensing. And currently we've got three ways of licensing. So we've got the traditional model. Now the traditional model is, they call it the a la carte, or we call it the a la carte model, and this means every server needs a license. It's a really, really granular way of knowing exactly what you've got and where you've got it. It does produce quite a few lines on the quote or on the renewal, but you know exactly where you are and you know exactly what you've got. Really good for the smaller end of the market to the medium-sized end of the market. A really good way of licensing every server individually. If you are a large virtual shop, so if you've got quite a few hypervisors and you've got a lot of virtual machines on there, because generally you have quite a few more virtual machines than you do have physical machines, we have a V-Ray edition or a virtual edition. And this enables you to license Backup Exec via the hypervisor CPU, very similar to how VMware do theirs. So you license it at the hypervisor level. Under that, you can have as many agents as you want for the hypervisor. So as many Windows agents, as many database agents, and you also get the deduplication option in there as well, which is a great feature. If you've got some physical servers as well as hypervisors, you can mix the two columns together. So if you've got the odd physical service outstanding, I know a lot of people do, you can buy another Windows agent or Linux agent on top of that. Now onto the last two columns. If you want an even easier way to license Backup Exec, you can license it on the front end terabytes, or how big is your backup. If your backup is 2 terabytes, you buy a 2 terabyte license, and that's it. You can have as many servers, agents, options as you like, depending on if you go light or full. So the only meter is how big your backup is, and then we will grow as you will grow. So if you only want 1 terabyte, you only buy 1 terabyte, and as you grow up to 5 terabytes, you can just keep adding on terabytes as you go. Very, very easy way of licensing Backup Exec. So kind of in summary, before I go on to the futures, Backup Exec is still very, very easy to use. It's one of the easiest backup products, I think, to use. I'm not really biased at all, but yeah, it's very, very easy to use. It's incredibly fast. If it's spec'd properly, and unfortunately backup servers generally get left to last, so they're not spec'd great, but if they are spec'd properly, they're very, very fast. We've got comparable speeds to a lot of enterprise products like NetBackup. That Backup Exec can be just as fast as those guys if we get it right. We integrate with all of the hypervisor technology to back up the virtual machines. So whether that be VADP or VSS with Microsoft. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to pick out a couple of ones that most people seem to forget these days. But for a couple of years now, on the right-hand side there, we've got integrated bare metal recovery. Now this is included in Backup Exec. There's no option, there's no agent. This is included in the price. If you're backing up the system state and the system drive on any machine, we can restore from a bare machine state. So that means you can wheel in a new piece of hardware, and it can be the similar hardware, dissimilar or similar, so you can wheel in a completely new hardware and restore it without an operating system. You boot up onto a recovery disk. Most of the time it's a USB stick made most of the time these days, and you point it towards the backup server and you just press restore. Backup Exec will do the rest. Whether you've changed the RAID controller, the CPU, the motherboard, whatever you changed, it will sort it out. We can do virtual conversions. A lot of people, again, forget about this. We can convert physical servers into virtual machines, whether it be a VMware or a Hyper-V. So we can convert those physical machines and do your conversions for you. And we've still got the great granular recovery technology. So if you want to recover an individual file and folder, no problem. If you want to restore an individual database, no problem. And we can go even one step further, and we can start restoring individual files, individual emails, individual items out of SharePoint, individual objects out of Active Directory from our one pass backup. So we don't have to back anything up twice, just once. We've got a really, really great cataloging technology that enables us to granular restore all of those files. And when we restore those files, we only restore the email that we want. Now I'm going to just move on to what's happening in the next 3 to 6 months. So what is going on with Backup Exec? There's a lot of emphasis, there's a lot of investment, and we're moving on leaps and bounds all the time with Backup Exec. As you saw, we've brought out 6 new features this year already. And the next thing that's coming out is, the first thing, actually, it's already done. So the cloud marketplace that I've mentioned earlier, and just in the last couple of weeks, we've announced that we're now in the AWS marketplace. So if you're an Amazon customer or a Microsoft customer, you can log onto the marketplace and you can search for Veritas and you can spin up a Backup Exec machine. Office 365, we will have support for that in January. So just after Christmas, hopefully January, February time, we will be able to back up the whole of the Office 365 suite. That includes calendars, contacts, email, SharePoint, OneDrive. We'll also have cloud connectors into the other cloud providers. So Salesforce.com, Dropbox, G Suite. It's not just Office 365 support. So we will hopefully in January, February time, be able to support all of those cloud workloads. We're going to have, we've got integration with Information Map that happened last week. I'm going to go to that in one slide. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. And then also subscription licensing. Again, I'm a little bit late because this came out last week as well. So if you're a new customer and you want to go down the subscription licensing route, you can buy it on a subscription license. You can pay for it yearly, and it's just a yearly cost. And there's 3 flavors: bronze, silver, or gold. And I've looked at the pricing, and it's very, very cheap. You'll be very, very surprised on how much the subscription licensing costs. But it's very, very similar to a lot of other subscription licensing models out there in the market. We're very, very similar. We've just got a different way of buying Backup Exec. So Information Map. What is Information Map? Information Map is a product that Veritas released probably about 2 years ago. It is a separate product, so I'm talking about a separate product here. And what it is it's a tool to help you visualize the information in the Backup Exec catalog. If you think about any backup catalog, it's very, very feature rich. It knows about every single file that you've backed up. It knows where that file is. It knows how old that file is. It knows who owns that file. And it also knows what kind of file that is. So that's quite a lot of feature-rich information that if you had the right tool, you could be able to interrogate it. And with Information Map, and there's a little screenshot on the right-hand corner, it's a real-time. You don't need to run any reports or anything else like that. You don't need to send any agents out. It can integrate upload the catalog into the Information Map, and you can kind of, browse around how you want. You can very quickly see where all your stale data is. So stale data is data that's older than 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months. You can decide what that time period is. You can also say, all right, tell me where all my non-business related data is. So if you're a company that doesn't use MPEGs or MP3s, you can very, very easily quickly see where and how much is this taking up. One of my customers found 30 terabytes of non-business related data just by installing this product. And they removed 30 terabytes of primary storage. And not only did they remove 30 terabytes of primary storage, that means they removed 30 terabytes from the backup, obviously making the backup a lot smaller and a lot more streamlined. That's also great from a GDPR perspective. You don't want data that you really shouldn't have on your system. Another one of my customers found an illegal TV series, copyrighted TV series on their primary storage. They also found it then on their secondary storage, and then they've been finding out that they've been backing it up every day for the last 6 months. So again, that's a huge amount of wastage that's been found with Information Map. So it's a great tool. Again, speak to Bytes, they'll be able to tell you more about Information Map or even organize a demo. It's really, really easy and really, really quick to use. It's a great product to try and streamline or make better data lifecycle management policies. Coming on to the last slide here. So there's 3 ways to test Backup Exec. So anyone can try it for free and download it, put it on a physical machine or a virtual machine in on-premise using backupexec.com/tryBE. You can use it for 60 days, fully functional. And then if you do want to buy it, you ring up Bytes, say you want to buy it, they give you a key, and you just carry on working. No reinstallation. You don't need to change anything. Just put the license key in. If you want to test this out in the cloud, you can go to Amazon or you can go to Azure, and you can spin these up you can use them for 60 days. And just like on premise, you need a license key. Ring up Bytes, they'll say your license key. And I think that's it. So there you go. I'm practically exactly in half an hour. So thanks very much for Bytes for inviting me to do the presentation. There's my contact details there. If anyone wants to contact me, that contacts me and my whole team. So we should be able to reply pretty quickly. But I'll pass back over to Amy, and I think she's going to do a little wrap up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so so thanks again, Alex. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to pop those in the questions box, and I will read those out for Alex shortly. Obviously, if you would prefer to take any of these offline, we do have our email address there, tellmemore@bytes.co.uk, and you can ask questions that way as well if you like. But we'll just wait a couple of minutes, see if any come through. So there's one question here that says, do you know what type of license would 365 backups need?
So yeah, so when it comes out in January, February time, it's priced on per user. So if you've got 10 people in the company and you want to back up Office 365, you'll need 10 licenses. It doesn't matter how much storage you use, it's just 10 licenses. Don't ask me a price. I don't know any prices just yet, but I do know it is priced per user.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Okay, so there's another question here. Will the Office 365 backup support dedupe?
So we don't need to. So Office 365, the product will go. It will back up to the cloud. And because we don't charge for the storage, we're not charging you for the storage, we're just charging you per user. You don't need to worry about deduplication, and you don't need to worry about storage. You don't need to worry about storage costs. You just need to worry about how many users you've got, and then it backs up to our cloud, and you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about the storage.
Brilliant, thanks, Alex.
Cool. Plenty of questions about Office 365. It's good to hear that a lot of people are interested. We should maybe organise a presentation around Office 365.
Okay, so there's another question here. So you mentioned an internet link of 100 to 150 meg is required. Any benchmark on it?
So it's not required. It was just generally when I'm speaking to customers, most customers have got either a 50 meg link or a 100 meg link. I've seen customers all the way down to a 4 megabyte link. But I haven't got any benchmark figures for a lot of, but I have got a best practices guide. And what I'll do is, if Amy takes down your details, because I can't see the questions, I will send you the best practices guide, and it's got speeds for network speeds, and it's also got speeds for tape drives and disk speeds and stuff like that. And it's got quite a few different speeds in there. I'll send that to you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. So Deepak, we will be in touch with that for you. So Mark, who asked the question about the backup support dedupe, has said, are those Office 365 backups encrypted?
Yes, they are. They are encrypted in transit and at rest as well. So from the day one release, you'll be able to pick, I think there's I'm trying to remember from the training, 3 data centers. I think there's going to be 1 in Europe and 2 in America. And that's going to be for the first release. So you can choose which data center you want to go to. So I think the European ones will go to the European data center. And then as time goes on, we'll be adding more and more data centers. So you can choose which one you want to back up to. But yeah, it will be encrypted in transit and at rest.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we've got today. So thanks everyone so much for joining, taking the time out of your busy schedules, and thank you so much, Alex, for presenting as well. So as mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there is a really quick kind of feedback form at the end. So if you would like any more information, pop that in there and we will be in touch with you. Okay, so thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.